Hi, everyone, and as always, welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Krish Patel, and before we begin, I want to remind you that we have our Month to Inspire, which is going on right now. We have inspirational workshops just for you, and we also have our live event, which is happening on June the 10th in Manchester. Our workshops are actually online, and they're available for you via Eventbrite. Today, we have a really special person, Keji Moses. Now, Kejii talks about motherhood, the trauma of her childhood, and the real difficulties that she had while she was pregnant. There's lots of things that Kejii goes into that get really deep into her life, and she shows so many vulnerabilities, but also so much courage. Just as a little trigger warning, that Kejii does talk about sensitive subjects about when she lost her baby, but she's so courageous and so inspiring. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And as always, let us know what you think and get in touch. Keji Moses, welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Right. This is going to be fun. Keji, do you want to tell us who you are, where you're from, and we'll just go from there.
Yes, so my name is Keji Moses. Originally, I'm from Nigeria, but I now live in the UK, and I've lived in the UK since the age of 8 years old. And I am the founder and CEO of Mayah's Legacy. And Mayah's Legacy is a charity that shine a light on the mental health impact of pregnancy loss. And so we run training like self-advocacy training, communication training. And the intention is to let people understand that their voice matters and whatever they have to say deserve to be honored.
And when I found out about you, when you reached out to me and when we touched base, it was just that such a heartfelt conversation about lived experience. The reason you do this and the reason we talk, and we're going to go into this, is you've lived this suffering, right?
Yes.
And you've seen the issues with the difficulties it brings, but also the systematic things that are maybe the support isn't there. So we're going to get into that. Where does it begin? Like you said, Nigeria is where you started your journey off. Brothers, sisters, what brought you to the UK? What were your dreams as a kid? And let's go from there, and we'll build up through your story.
Yeah, so I was the only child for a period of 9 years. And growing up in Nigeria, my mom had me in her early 20s. I think she was 20 when she had me. And so she still wanted to have a life, go out with her friends and just enjoy her life. So most of my early years was spent with my grandmother, and she was a pillar in terms of helping me to kind of navigate my way through those years. And she took me everywhere. You know, she went to church, she took me along, she went to her women's group, I was there with her. And so, and at some point, called my mother auntie, and my grandmother was the mother figure in my life. And so that went on for many years, and I didn't actually see anything wrong with it. I just thought, okay, I have these two lovely women in my life. My mother was hardly present, but my grandmother was there. And, that went on for many years. And then my mother decided to move to the UK, and she didn't take me with her. So she left me with my grandmother in Nigeria. And eventually she decided at some point that she wanted me to relocate and come and live with her. At that point, both my parents were not together. When I was born, they didn't have a good relationship, but they decided to come to England together, right? And then decided to bring me along. Whether that was a good idea or not, we'll soon find out. So I came into England at the age of 8 years old. At this time, my mother had had another child, which was my brother. He was a baby at that point. And when I came, and I saw that she was going through a lot of challenges, There was issues with domestic violence. There was issues of um, not having any kind of support around her because she was an only child. So coming here and not having any kind of support was like an eye opener for her. And so what happened was that as a very young child, I had to really grow up really fast. And I didn't understand the concept of that because I was an only child for 9 years. And now I have to help this woman support her in what she was doing. So I would get up early in the morning at the age of 11 and I would get my brother ready, sort him out. We would walk through our estate at that time. It was not Peckham Estate. We used to get up really early. I'll take him to nursery. Then from then, I will go to my secondary school. When I finish, I would go and pick him up. And it was just that way for many, many years. My mum worked 3 jobs trying to kind of keep the roof over our heads and just keep us above water. She was working really hard. So for me, I felt that I needed to support and help her. And plus, I wasn't looking at her as a mother like my mum. I looked at her as if she was my sister and I needed to support her. So we were really there for each other for many years. And her relationship with my dad broke down. There were, you know, they just it, there was a lot of issues in that relationship. And I think for her, it was better that they were not together rather than being together. So myself and my brother saw a lot of things, you know, domestic violence. We saw, you know, arguments, a lot of dysfunctional behavior was exhibited, abuse of alcohol. There was a lot of things going on there. And so I took all that in as a young person. And what really, really, really helped me was I belonged to a religious organization. It was like a church group. And I would attend every single activity because that was my escape. I needed to get out of that environment and be somewhere totally different. So I would go to church. I was part of the choir. I was part of every other, activities that was going on. And I participated, and those activities I believe when I look back saved me as a young person because I mixed with other young people. I had the support from other adults within that group, and so for many years that was my life. I was the church girl.
Wow. Just Kejii, like from Nigeria to there, and your mother and father, and everything you just discussed, it's just so profound. The relationship with your father, you've not spoke about him much in terms of, yes, obviously the domestic violence, the alcohol abuse. What did you feel towards that person?
I would say that at the point I loved my father. I still love him. He's a different man now. Totally, totally different man. But at that point, he himself, my parents had traumas, childhood traumas. I mean, if they had to tell you their stories, they were carrying on a lot of traumatic experiences. And because there wasn't any help or support from them, they brought that into their relationship. And for them, it was normal behavior. Um, and so I didn't really feel anything towards my dad. I was angry, silently angry with him, but I did not exhibit it at that point. I just survived, if you put it that way. I mean, when they separated, I stopped talking to him for a very long time. There was no communication between the both of us, and I was okay with that for a long period of time. But I realized in order for me to be able to let go and move on with a lot of issues that I had daddy issues. I'll be honest with you. I find myself in relationship with men that I had no business being with because I thought, that's what I needed. I was looking for that validation. I was looking for that love. that I didn't feel like I had as a young person. And so I would go to relationship with men that would not treat me nicely, that would not pay attention to me. And it wasn't, my self-esteem was very low. And so I had to kind of work through those issues. And in order for me to be able to work through those issues, I had to come to a place of forgiveness. Forgiveness, not forgiveness for myself, for feeling the way that I felt, and forgiving him as well, because he didn't know any better. He didn't have the tools to be able to um, have a different behavior. And so for many years, we worked through that, and we're at a different place now. And he's a remarkable man in his 60s, nearly 70, and he's changed and turned things around. But at that time, I remember there was a day that I actually confronted him and I said, don't you ever do that to my mom again. And I think he was shocked because I think I was about 12 years old, but I felt like I needed to protect her.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's where trauma, childhood trauma, we come across it all the time. Well, I come across it all the time, where I come across homeless people on the streets, and so common, unresolved childhood trauma. I come across parents who struggle, and this is where what you talk about is unresolved childhood trauma that they've not got through. Then they become an adult, they get into relationships like you just discussed, and the things they're portraying in their relationships is the root of it, the foundation is from unresolved childhood trauma. So the cycle continues over and over again until you break it. And like you said, your dad's 60 and 60 in his 60s going into 70, and maybe he's just been able to break that, and that's brilliant. There's no, who's to say how long it takes. It might last beyond a lifetime depending on what you feel, your religious beliefs or whatever it is. But it's easy for us to judge that
Yes.
your dad's a good or a bad person because of what he's done. And I guess it's just that he's actually so far from happy when he was doing them. Like if he was truly happy, he wouldn't have done that.
No.
So where does your journey, Kejii, where does your journey go from there?
So for many years, I was involved in my church, like I was saying, church activities. I was part of the youth group, a youth pastor. And within the religious organization I belonged to, there was a lot of self-development activities. And that really helped me. So finding myself, self-awareness, who are you? Who do you want to be? And I was reading a lot of books, that really helped me to really find my feet. And I just went through life, met my husband, and I didn't really, it wasn't it wasn't a relationship that we thought that would actually last. I didn't think it was going to last, but I was at that breaking point. I just thought, I'll just give it a go, and that was it. And I fell pregnant
Wow.
months into the relationship. And it was like, okay, if he stays, well, good. If he doesn't, I'll be fine. I had my own property at the age of 28. I had a good job. For me, it was like if he's around, he's around. And then when I told him, he was silent initially, and he put down the phone and then called me back and said, all right, let's do this. And so for many years we were trying to find our own feet as well. And what began to resurface in my relationship was those issues that I had as a child. They kept coming up, and that little girl was what was showing up in that relationship. That little girl that needed the constant validation, constant, pat on the back, constant, you are good enough. And it can be draining for the other person and can be tiring at times. And he had his own issues as well. But what I found was it was so important as individuals within that relationship to do our inner work.
Yeah.
I was prepared to do that inner work, even if it meant I had to go to some ugly places in my journey and be honest with what I had gone through. So, all through the years, we were working on ourselves.
Mm.
And my first experience of grief, I would say, was when my grandmother died. When I came into months after I came into the UK, she passed away, and that was it. And I remembered I was 8, 10, and I wore this black dress to primary school, and everybody was like, "What's going on?" For me, it was a way that I could grieve her, and I feel like I didn't really grieve her that I didn't grieve her like I should, as I didn't process it properly. It was more like, oh wow, this is a very important person in my life that I've lost. And the way that I dealt with it is I shut it down. The emotion of grief, I shut it down. I didn't want to have to deal with it. So I moved on until I was confronted with grief again. And that brought a lot of issues on.
Just a quick one about grief, because grief is something that it's hard to process. Different things, maybe the loss of a job could cause you to grieve because you love that job so much, or a loss of a friendship. Even though that person's not died, it's a relationship, it's a cut off, it's a dead end, it's done. How is there a process to be able to deal with grief? And is there anything that supported you as you've grown up with grief?
For me, I had to look at it from the lens of I didn't do anything wrong. I felt maybe I had done something wrong. I didn't take my vitamins. This is the reason why it happened, or maybe I did something in my past life and then I'm being punished for it. But I had to come to the understanding that I did not do anything wrong, and these things do happen to good people. It's not about whether you're bad or good. Life happens. And understanding that, I was able to look at it. My faith and my belief played an important role in this, and my understanding of who I think God is, not who somebody else had told me who is. Who is he to me? And understanding that even through this experience, I am going to be okay. I'm going to come out through the other end. But I have to go through this experience. I have to feel the pain. I have to be able to speak about the pain. And I have to be free enough to cry about it. Covering it up like I usually do with a lot of my emotions and try to show up and be strong is not going to work this time. I have to go to the depth of that grief and that pain and really, really, really angry about it, really, really saying, why is this happening to me? And then really, really saying, okay, now I have been able to release and let go. What is it here to teach me, and how can I grow from here? So, yes, it's about allowing yourself to feel the grief and not putting a time on it.
It's
It
easy to
will
do.
take,
It's
yeah,
easy to put that time on it, isn't it? Right. This has happened. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be fine.
no,
That's in a week, I'm going to get it. No, you can't force that situation.
you can't force it. You have to let the natural process take its course.
Yeah.
Because if you're fighting against it, it will resurface again and it will
And
keep resurfacing again. Yes.
and resurfacing is where we get into you say that the grief came up again. So do you want to talk about, obviously you got pregnant, you're
Yeah.
with your husband, and
Yeah.
this kind of goes into the story of obviously what you kind of do now. Is Do you
Mm.
want to explain what happened really?
So I became pregnant and we had my first child, um, Nathan, who was born through emergency C-section, and he came and that I cannot describe the experience. It's the best, one of the best experiences I've had. Because when I saw his face, I was like, oh my goodness, we made this beautiful child, and he's such a lovely boy. Um, for me, he came into my life, and he came to teach me so many things. He came in to teach me about love. He could read me in a way that I can't even explain. He knows when mommy's down, and he's able to say, "Oh, mommy," that word of little encouragement is like he had wisdom beyond his years. And so we had him, and it was lovely and everything else. And then soon after, I became pregnant, maybe 2 years after Nathan. And at 12 weeks of my pregnancy, I went for an ultrasound, and I can see in the face of the I can't remember what they're called now, the person that was actually doing the ultrasound, and he looked at me and he said, um, I need to get someone out. I'll be back. And then they came back, and they were pressing in, and they said, "Oh, we're sorry, there's no heartbeat." And I was like, "No, you're not talking to me. I want you to do this again." And they said, "We're sorry, there's no heartbeat. Can you just come outside?" And I had to sit in the waiting area. Then I called my husband. I said, "This is what they said to me." And he rushed to the hospital. Then I went into another room, and the lady said, "I'm sorry, this had happened. What do you want to do now? Do you want us to book an appointment for a DC, or do you want it to happen naturally?" And I said, "No." I said, "I wanted another ultrasound. You don't understand. This baby is not gone." And they said, "All right, come back tomorrow and we would do it again." And I went back the next day, and it was the same result. And at that point, I felt, I can't describe the experience. I can't describe it. I felt like the floor should just open and just take me at that point. And I said, "No, I'm going to allow this to happen naturally." I didn't know when I agreed for that process to happen naturally, it would actually take 2 weeks. I was at home knowing that this child had passed away, and I, day after day, living, day after day, it's going to happen today, it's going to happen to 2 weeks. And they said, "Look, we've given you a date. If this doesn't happen naturally by this date, you have to come in, because that is not healthy for you to be in that position." And in a way, I just think I couldn't let go. And I think that was what was the thing about it. I could not let go of something that I was looking forward to, a child that I've seen her heartbeat before, or his heartbeat before, and now this child is no longer. What have I done? Did I do anything wrong? Was it the fact that it was stress? I was asking a lot of questions, and every single day I would cry. And my husband was like, "You cannot put yourself through this." I would just be wailing and just cry and cry and cry. And then I remember the day that it actually happened. I felt this really excruciating pain. And I said, I'm feeling like pain. And my husband said, "All right, then go to the toilet." And I went in there. And I remember my husband and my little boy was waiting outside, just in there, making sure I was okay. And then it happened at that time. And I came out, and they made sure I was fine. And that was it. But that wasn't really it, because for many years, what I tried to do is I was then saying, "No, no, this is not fair. This shouldn't happen to me. I want another child to replace this." And I went on a journey of, my husband, at one point, he was like, "You just need to relax. Just calm down." I was trying to replace what I had lost,
Mhm.
and which happens a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. And this is, as much as people won't know that it is a common thing, it's just that we don't talk about this. Like for you, I want to first of all acknowledge you and just say thank you for talking so courageously about, honestly, Kejii, one of the most vulnerable, tough times of your life. So thank you for really sharing this. There will be people listening to this podcast or watching this podcast or whatever they're doing and realizing that, wow, that happened to me, or that happened to a friend, and it gives them an insight to that. You're going through so many struggles. You're trying to replace this baby, which actually, in a stretch, in a mindset sensical point of view, it doesn't make sense. But from a heart point of view, and this actually, it makes complete sense.
Yes.
What happens next, and what do you decide to do, and what goes on?
So I was trying, and I had difficulty getting pregnant. I had fertility issues. In fact, I had a medical condition where I would not have period for a long period of time, and then when that period comes back, it comes back like literally. I would, at some point, I could not go to work for 3 months because I was bleeding heavily, and it was like clots, lots of blood. And so they, wanted to make further investigation. Noticed I had cysts in my ovaries. I had 2 operations to remove those cysts from my ovaries, and then I started fertility treatment. And I remember going for myself, my first appointment, and they said, "Oh, before we even put you on this medication, you would need to do ultrasound again." So they did ultrasound. I said, "Oh, there's a cyst on your ovaries again, but this time this cyst is gotten big, and we won't be able to continue the medication until this is looked at." So they referred me to a gynecologist. I remember him, and I think on my note they put cancer, something referring to. I was like, no, because they wanted to check whether it was cancerous or not. And so I, at that point, I was like, no, please, no. So they did the operation, they removed it, they checked it, and it wasn't cancerous. And that was a relief for me. Then I went on to naturally had my second was pregnant with my second son, but I was very, very protective, very, very on edge. I didn't enjoy that pregnancy at all because every little thing I was so afraid, and I didn't enjoy the process. And I remember that. And this is one of the reasons why for me it's important to listen to your body, and it's important for professionals to listen to people because you know your body. Both pregnancies, both my boys, I knew something was not right because it wasn't time for me to deliver them. I walked into the hospital myself. I phoned in and I said, "I'm coming in." And they said, "But you're not due to come in." I said, "I don't feel something is right." And they said, "Okay, come in." When I came in, the heartbeat had dipped, and they did the emergency section. That's for my first child. My second son, the same thing. I said, "I just feel something is not right." By the time I got in there, they tried to induce me, didn't work out. I had to have C-section to deliver him. And so it's important to listen to people and not just fob them up off and say, "Okay, you don't know what you're talking about. We are the experts here. Therefore, we know more than you do." You might have the expertise, but lived experience and the, kind of intuitive, power that we all have, it's important and it should be part of the process. So we had my second son, Joshua, and we were happy he was here. Yes. And soon into, I noticed something wasn't right with him because he wasn't eating very well. He was very thin, and I went to the doctor and I said to the doctor, I said, "Look, can you check him out for me because this is not, something is not right." And they checked him and they said, "Oh, he's not eating very well." They put him on a plan, and as we went further on, we realized that his development was very slow. He wasn't speaking. He had a tongue tie that they had to operate on and released. And then in a school, he couldn't kind of understand what they were saying to him. He wasn't at the he wasn't functioning at a level that he needed to function, and that was a worrying experience for me. So I was doing my research. I was the one bringing it up, like, we need to do this, we need to sort this out. But eventually, they realized that he has um, developmental learn learning disorder, and he needed speech therapy and things like that, which we're working with him at the moment, and he's doing, you know, great things. But all that, in all of that going on, I became pregnant again. And this time we were like, okay, this is it. We're not having no more kids. This is it. We were excited when I went for my ultrasound. It's a girl, yes. Not that it matter, but it's a
Yeah,
girl.
you've had
Yeah,
two
we've got
boys.
a
Here
girl.
comes a girl. Yeah.
Fantastic. And my husband was excited. And then at 22 weeks, they said, we need to, no, they tested me initially because I was over 40, and they would consider it as a high risk pregnancy. And so when they tested me, they said, oh, you're positive. You came back positive for T18. I was like, trisomy 18. I was like, what's that? And they said, oh, we'll book an appointment for you to see a specialist. So I went on Google, really, and I started searching up. And what I was seeing was, I nearly had a heart attack. I said, this is what they said, and I've got on Google, and it doesn't look good. And so I had my, appointment with the specialist, and because I went to a specialist hospital because of the nature of what was going on, Mayah wasn't developing very well. There was a lot of fluid, and so they said, if this pregnancy progresses, what we'll do when she's born, we would operate and try to help her, and she should be okay. She'll be all right. But as we progress into the pregnancy, there was one complications after the other, and I remember it was affecting me as well because I had high blood pressure. I was hospitalized. Even the consultant said to me, look, to forget about the pregnancy, you need to fight for your life, right? Because you could have had a stroke, and I'm not letting you go home. You are staying in the hospital. And so they were trying to gently tell me to let it go, to let her go, let her go. And I was like, no, I see a heartbeat. I am fighting for this child. I have had situations where I've let things go, and this I am not letting go. We are going to go through this pregnancy, and we are going to fight for her because she's still, I can see her heartbeat. She is not gone. She's fighting. I'm fighting too. And so, I would go into a room, and you have like consultants, 6, 7 consultants, students, they'll come in and they'll look. And it was more about trying to read the ultrasound. And there was never a point where they looked and said, can we offer counseling to you? Can we offer, some kind of support to you? Because I was petrified every time I had an appointment, and I had an appointment every other week. And so going into that, it was very, traumatic for me. And I remember coming towards the end of it. Um, I remember both my husband, we were really tired. We were physically, emotionally, mentally tired. And we just said, what will be, will be. And at that point, I think I let go. I just said, whatever happens, okay. And I remember the week before my C-section, I just called the hospital again. Intuition, I knew. I said, I'm coming in. They said, but your C-section is next week. I said, something is not right. So I walked in, and as I was walking through the reception area, there was a gentleman. He had a jacket. I would never forget it. And he turned around, and the jacket said tragedy. And that, to me, I read things and I pick things up, and I thought something awfully has happened here. So by the time I got up and they were checking and they couldn't find a heartbeat, I knew. And I called my husband. That was the first time I heard him cry. he was distraught. He was crying, and my two boys were with him. They were like, "Mommy, why is Daddy crying?" And then they came to the hospital, and this is where compassion comes into things when we deal with people that have gone through these experiences. I remember the registrar came in, and she said, "I'm really sorry that this had happened to you, but unfortunately we're going to have to operate because she's lying across. You can't have her naturally. We're going to have to do a C-section." And I thought, a C-section it's a serious operation, and that will be my third one. So I'm going to have my body cut up open. I'm going to go through this pain, and I will not have a child to take home. Is that what you're saying to me? And she looked at me and she said, "Okay, you know what I'll do for you?" She said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to stay here tonight and we'll do the C-section in the morning, or do you want to go home with your family?" She gave me that choice, and I will forever be grateful, because it's a way of showing compassion. She knew that I needed my family around me at that moment, and she let me go home. So I spent the evening with my family. In the morning, we got the kids to school and we went to the hospital for the surgery. And the anaesthetist came in, and I looked at him and I begged him. And I said, "Please put me to sleep. I don't want to be awake." And he said, "I can't just put you to sleep. I'm sorry, I can't put you to sleep. We're going to have to not put you to sleep." And I begged him. I said, "Please, please." And I was shaking. I was literally shaking. And he walked out. And he came in and said, "All right, I'll put you to sleep." That's compassion. A lot of people will say, but for me at that moment, I think if they had tried to inject me with the epidural at that moment, anything could have happened, because my mental mind and my body was at a point of shock that I'm going through this. And they put me to sleep. I came out of the experience and they said to me, I remember the brief nurse said to me, "Oh, she's beautiful. We've dressed her up. Do you want to see her?" I said, "No, I don't. I don't. I did not want to remember her there. That image, I didn't want to have that image in my mind for the rest of my life." I said, "No, I don't." But I said, "Can I see a picture of her, please?" And they brought her a picture of her. They dressed her up. And I said, "Oh, she looks beautiful. She looked like, my youngest son." I said, and then she said, "Are you sure you don't want to see her?" I said, "No, I was in hospital for a couple of days." She came back the next day. She said, "You know what? If you don't see her, you don't want to regret this for the rest of your life. I want you to think about this." And I thought, okay, bring her in. And they brought her in, and my husband and myself, we sat and we prayed, and the chaplain was in there. We did a little prayer. We said our goodbye, and that was it. But it was kind of one of those experiences, because I was in a ward where other women were having babies, and I was like in the middle. So you can hear women coming from the operating theatre, and the babies crying, and and I was just there. So in the middle of the night, when nobody was there and I was in the room, I wasn't sleeping. I'll sit on the chair and I would just be in tears. So I would just cry and cry and cry, to the point that my husband was like, "You're really going to hurt yourself if you just give yourself some space." And that was that was that was the experience. And I just couldn't go back to work after that.
How long ago was this, Keji?
2018.
2000. So, wow, just before the pandemic, really, just 2 years
Mm-hmm.
before the pandemic. And you talk about the grief and the difficulties over and over again, this consistent thing coming through, and you put yourself through. You were happy, not happy, but you were willing to put yourself through. This could be really, you was under the possibility of a stroke, right?
Mm.
High risk of a stroke at that time. What is it about being a mother that's so precious?
I look at motherhood as a spiritual thing. I think it is. a gift that we've been given. It doesn't, that child doesn't have to come through you naturally. It is a gift that you have been given and an opportunity, because a life comes through you, or a life comes into your life, that you are now a guardian of that journey of that individual. And it is a responsibility for you to be able to support that individual to become the best version of who they were meant to be. So for me, it's deeper than just going to the hospital and having a child. When I saw each pregnancy and I saw each heartbeat, I saw purpose, right? And that was how I saw it. And so it's like, no, this purpose cannot just be terminated here. This can't just be the end. But Maya taught me something else, that is not the number of years that you spend on this earth that determines how impactful you are, or determines whether your purpose is important or not. She taught me that that little period where she I was able to experience her moving forward with Maya's legacy, that purpose continues and continues to impact so many lives. So motherhood is a spiritual experience. Motherhood is a gift. Motherhood is something that I take very seriously. It is a responsibility that I take very seriously. And also, it is something that I see that those who come into our life, that we have the opportunity to be mothers to, whether through, your aunt, your, stepmom, your foster mom, whatever capacity or situation you find yourself, they're there to teach you something about you as well. So it's an exchange.
Wow. And then you got to such a difficult point. How do you even start to overcome that kind of grief?
I what helped me was taking time off work. So I went on a career break. That means I wasn't doing anything for that year. But not a lot of people have the opportunity to be able to do that. But I was able to do that. So I spent a lot of time with myself. I spent a lot of time with my family, and just spending time with my two boys. And just, there were days where I would go for walks, and I'll be walking on the street and I'll be crying, and people will be looking at me and thinking, what's up with her? There were times where, I'll just stand by the window and look out, the sun will be shining and there will be tears in my eyes, and I'll just hope that the neighbors are not looking and not watching me. So it was, as much as I did have people around me, it's also a very lonely journey. And what helped me most of the time was the moment of silence. And I always say this, when you have people in your life and sometimes they don't know what to say to you, when you're going through these experiences, silence was therapeutic for me. That space of nothing being said, because sometimes people feel they have to fill those gaps. For me, not feeling those gaps was okay. Just your presence alone was good enough. So I can sit in a room with someone and just silence, but that presence and just knowing that they're there was good. And also appreciating the fact that if you feel like you can't support the person, or what they're going through is a bit too much, it's okay to say to them and be honest and say, you know what, I don't think I'm the best person to support you now, but I will work with you to get the help and the support that you need. The worst thing is to ghost them because you don't want to hear about another story that they have to tell you about their child that they've lost. You just say, I'm not picking up their phone, because that can give them a sense of abandonment. It can give them a sense of, you know, it can put them in, it can make the situation worse, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did you decide to do after
So,
after this? So what have you, like, your quest, your journey has come to what you're doing today? Like, what was the what I guess, do you want to tell us a more about what you're doing now, I guess?
so what I'm doing now is twofold. It's looking at the mental health impact of, pregnancy loss and how it affects the family. It doesn't just affect the woman, it affects the husband, it affects the children, it affects the extended family as well. And also, the reason why I focus on mental health is because as a child, my mother dealt with a lot of mental health issues. Although she doesn't talk about it, for a period of 8 years, she had severe depression, and she would sit in front of the TV day in and day out. I would go to school or go out or come back, myself and my brother. She would just sit there. And I thought maybe it was just those things in life. Maybe she needed to join a social group or something. So I was encouraging her to join social group and be part of, some kind of activity. But it was deep rooted, and it was a depression. Understanding mental health now, I knew she was depressed, and we just didn't know who to kind of reach out to or who to speak to whilst growing up. And so I became her therapist, I became her counselor, I became the friend that she never had, I became the sister that she never had. So it was a lot trying to deal with that. And so that's one of the reasons why my focus is focusing on the mental health aspect of pregnancy loss, because women go through the depression, and women go through anxiety. Women go through the fact that they don't want to come out of their homes. They go through the experiences where anything or any smell, anything that reminds them of that experience just triggers something in them. And it could be exhibited while they're at work, it could be exhibited anywhere. And so we need to have a deeper understanding of this, and understand that it happens to the man as well. It happens to the dads go through this as well. Their emotions is important. And so I wanted to focus on that, and also the importance of honoring people's voice. It doesn't matter where they're coming from, whether I'm black, white, Asian. No, that shouldn't matter. When I come to you and say I am feeling not right, and you send me home with a paracetamol, where I had a sugar level of 22, and the normal level should be 7, and I was sent home. Started having a terrible headache, and it wouldn't go away. I drove myself to the hospital at 5 a.m. in the morning. When I walked through the door and they checked me, they said, "You are not going home." I ended up having a CT scan, drips for days to get that level down, because I could have been walking around and just had a stroke or just collapsed, and that would have been the end of it. But they saw it, but they didn't do nothing about it. So those it's about compassion in our practices, compassion when we deal with people, particularly when people are at a vulnerable point in their life. We must show compassion. It cannot just be clinical.
So you've shown the one side of the mental health and the compassion, the side of it. But what about the organisation that you've created? What is the name of the organisation? What are
The
you
aim of,
doing?
the aim of the organization is to raise awareness, and that means coming to a platform like yours and speaking about the real issues that needed to be spoken about, working with other organizations that are in this space like SANS, like Tommy's, to bring to bring awareness to pregnancy loss, and offering free training to parents and families that have gone through this experience, and giving them the skills that they need in order to be able to self-advocate for themselves and allow their voices to be heard. What are the tools that they need in order to be able to do that? So as an organization, that is our focus: awareness, communication, training, and bringing a level of compassion to what we do.
And what's the name of the organisation again?
Mayah's legacy.
And
Mayah's legacy.
how do people find out about Mayah's legacy, about yourself? How do people find out about you guys?
So Maya's Legacy, you can find us on all our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Maya's Legacy, all one words, Mayahs Legacy, Maya's Legacy. And then our website is www.maya.org.uk. That's www.maya.org.uk. And if you want to get in touch with me and send me an email, you can send an email to info@maya.org.
Amazing. Okay, and we're gonna put everything in the show notes. For whoever's listening or whoever's watching, you'll find out all the information to be able to contact Kejii and find out more. This has been so informative, heartfelt, and I'm so grateful for the time. So before we get into our quick fire questions, once again, Kejii, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. It takes a lot of courage to be able to dig so deep. So I wish I could give you a big, massive hug right now, to be honest, mate. So are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Go on.
Right. So I'm going to start a sentence. You're going to finish the sentence.
Mm.
Okay. So here we go. Life is about.
Life is about unfolding, evolving, and becoming the best version of who you were created to be.
I love it. Motherhood is.
Motherhood is a gift.
Family.
Family is anyone that comes into your life, that has come into your circle and has accepted you for who you are, and you accepted them for who they are. And you can go on this journey together through the ups and downs.
I love it. Our systems should.
Our systems should show compassion.
Love that. Absolutely love it. My next question is a little bit of a different one. Is that if you could speak to your 16-year-old self, you would say?
I would say you are worthy, you are loved, you are valuable, and you're beautiful.
I love it. And the final question, the final quickfire question. If there was to be a Keji Moses law, a rule, a government rule that was put in place, what would that rule be and why?
The rule will be to show respect to the vulnerable, to incorporate and actually help the less fortunate in our society to get to a point where they don't always have to live just above water, to be able to help them to implement policies and things that will consider them at every level.
I love it. I love it. So my final two questions, Kejii, that I ask every Tales of Spy guest, so everyone gets these. The first one is, Keji Moses, what's your definition of the word inspire?
Inspire is about courage. It's about sparking the fire within so that you could sparking the fire within. That's inspired to me. Yeah.
I love it. I've actually got our book here, our Tales to Inspire book, for the YouTube people watching, a collection of stories to ignite the spark within. So that's literally what we do, is to ignite the spark. We're not trying to say everyone can do the Keji Moses, everyone can do the Krish Patel, but what we are trying to say is we can ignite a spark for you to be the best version of you.
Yes.
And that's in your own unique way. People can be their own unique person.
Yes.
So I love that. That's so cool. Brilliant. And my final question that I ask everyone is, if you were to live the best, most fulfilled life you want to live, Kejii, you're in your hundreds and you're looking back, you're like, I've done it all. I've done what I wanted. What is the biggest and proudest impact you want to have achieved during this lifetime?
To let people know that you can do anything that you put your mind to do. It doesn't have to be on a grand platform. Whatever it is that you want to do within your community, you can do it. Within your family, you can do it. Everything that you need is already inside of you. There's no need. We're always looking for something on the external. It's in you. Just look within and you will find it.
Amazing. Honestly, Kejii, thank you so much. This has been so amazing. Just incredible. Isn't it amazing how you come across people and you connect and you really feel that your heart, it's all about heart and compassion, like you've talked about. We want to make a difference and we're there to support others to do that. We're building bridges between each other, our listeners, the people who are watching. There's no separation. We just have to realize that sometimes to reveal what you just said there, to reveal what exists within. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
How courageous is Kejii to be able to support herself and then go on to support and have the determination to create something to support others is so magnificent. She shows us that we can reveal our true self. Look within. She talked about it. Look within and we can have everything. We don't have to keep looking outside of ourselves. And to show compassion. We can all show compassion. Yes, there may be a decision that's hard, but we can make that decision in a compassionate manner. Overcoming child trauma is something that many of us have been through, but to overcome it is really difficult. Sometimes we need one person to see the potential in us. It takes one person to help us change our direction of our life. There's so much that she talks about. If you do want to get in touch with Kejii, please do. The show notes are here just for you. And thank you so much for all of your support. As a reminder that you can donate as little as £11 a month to our patreon.com/Tales to Inspire podcast to keep this inspirational movement going. We have workshops just for you. And if you're interested in our school workshops, where our educational specialists go in, inspiring and raising awareness, then do get in touch. I hope you have a wonderful day and take care.